All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order at 5:46 p.m. Welcome you all to the Wednesday, January 22nd, 2014 meeting. Hope you all had a good weekend. We'll start with roll call and attendance. John Bowen. Here. Joseph Bryant.
Here.
JD Shrest. Here. Sarah Feeney.
Here.
Miles Glover. Sharon Jonason.
Here.
Kay Kennison.
Here.
Robert Lane. Robert Mosier.
Here.
Josh Mutart.
Here.
Catherine O'Neill. Todd Stiver.
Here.
Ashley Stubbs.
Here.
Derek Whittam.
Here.
Connie Williams.
Here.
Jacob Whitman. Here. All right. Thanks for showing up, guys. We'll move on to section 3, agenda approval. If y'all want to take a look at the agenda for me. You got it. This is the letter. All right, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the January 22nd agenda. Robert? Sarah, second by Sarah. Sorry, it's been a long day. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, agenda approved. How you doing, Miles?
Good, how are you guys? I'm sorry for late.
Nah, apology not accepted. I'm just kidding. It's good to see you. Put that in the minutes, okay? We'll move on to section 4, approval of the minutes from January 15th, 2014. I think you have. Yeah. Okay.
There was one point on page 2 under the motion being made that it should say base funding cycle along with stipulation to present their annual report. It says to presentation their annual report.
Yeah, I had another correction.
Okay.
On near the bottom of page 1, I made a motion to approve $8,100 for the cross-cultural leadership program. It says no second, but Robert Lane seconded that motion before it went down to bitter defeat. So. That is correct.
So when it says motion dies, you just have to put motion rescinded, or because it didn't die if there's a second.
Motion denied.
Denied.
Motion denied.
It failed. The motion failed.
Thanks, Ashley. Okay, anything else? All right. With those corrections, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes from January 15th, 2014.
So moved.
Is there a second? JD second. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, minutes approved. Move on to section 5, reports. I have nothing to report except for I did write a letter to the MassDash group, which we will get to later on in the agenda. Other than that, I have nothing. Do you have anything?
Do you want to mention
Which?
that we received the
Oh, the approval.
So our request to fund the $9,900 for the El Salvador trip, that was presented to the Budget and Finance Committee, and we have received approval back through George Clark, the Board of Trustees designee, that we can go ahead and release those funds, so that will be happening. The one-time increase to cover the classified staff and then the minimum wage increase, those were recommended to move forward by the Budget and Finance Committee, so that will actually go before the Board of Trustees in February.
Yeah, any amount of $25,000 or more, correct? It has to be approved by the BOT. Anything else, guys? Okay, with that, move on to section 6, public comment. At this time, is there any public comment? That coat doesn't have anything to say. All right, sounds good. Move on to section 7, supplemental funding requests. At this time, we have no pending requests. So move on to section 8, old business, annual report updates. So last week we voted on sanctions for the MassDash group, and I was stipulated to write a letter. So I did write a letter, which I printed off a copy for you guys here if you want to read it.
Can you just read it?
Yep. Yeah, to whom it may concern, the Service and Activities Fee Committee voted to extend your deadline to January 15th, 2014. We received your report on January 16th, 2014. Due to the tardiness of the MassDash year-end report, the Service and Activities Fee Committee voted on and passed the following sanctions. 2.5% decrease in funding for the 2014-2015 fiscal year, and a face-to-face presentation to the committee of the year-end report. This presentation must occur before March 1st, 2014. Please email jonason@cwu.edu to be placed on our agenda. Service and Activities Fee Committee meets Wednesdays at 5:45 p.m. If you have any questions regarding these sanctions, do not hesitate to ask. Sincerely, Jacob Whitman, Service and Activities Chair.
And has that been delivered?
It has been delivered. Yes, it was delivered last week, I believe Thursday. Any
So,
comment on that?
That was the 16th.
It was delivered Friday.
So,
I think it was delivered last week. It's been delivered though, so through campus now. Any comment on that? Okay. No other old business, so we'll move on to section 9, new business. We'll start with A, base funding program reviews. We have none today. So we'll move on to section B, staffing updates, Circuit County. So I'll pass the board to Sharon.
Okay, so last year, the committee sent a letter to Sarah Swager saying, basically to the effect, please be aware that we're watching staffing, increases to staffing. Now that could be new employees, or it could be a reclassification of an existing employee, because as staff come on or reclassifications happen, it does directly impact the operating budget of this committee. So wanting to be cognizant of that and respectful of the committee, I do have 2 staff members that I have asked to have looked at. And for the primary reason is, of the 3.5 years that I've been in charge of the Circuit County office, I have had full staff for maybe 6 months because of the classification of my staff members. And they are truly doing the work of comparable to some of the folks over in Mitchell Hall and such. And we looked at like duties, we looked at the state classifications. So I have asked for that, but I've also, my office has taken on a lot of additional areas to where, by my calculation, I do not intend to request support from the S&A committee to cover those additional charges at least for 10 years. And I'm very happy to put that in writing and such, but I am looking for the committee's blessing to understand why we would want to classify people to the jobs that they're actually doing, because it does impact the students when we have a lot of vacancies in our office, or folks that cannot provide the service.
Connie?
I wanted to ask just a couple questions to clarify something. So their position description is being reviewed by HR, right?
Correct.
To make sure they're in the correct classification.
Correct.
And I wanted to let the committee know that actually, even if Sharon had asked that, the employees have every right to do that, even if, so any employee can do that. So there might not have been a choice, and it's not an unusual thing to do, because often as responsibilities are added, their position doesn't reflect that, their current position.
And with, I think my second day of work here, I was invited over to meet with the AVP, Connie's position. I believe the state auditor was here and a couple other folks, because our area was not compliant with a lot of things. So we have vastly changed the way that office operates to ensure that we have appropriate internal controls and that we're following generally accepted accounting standards and so on. And with also the changes along campus, our office has taken a lot of additional duties from other areas to help support students. The new travel processes, one of them where we do a lot of training with students to ensure that they have the information in the system and they're not negatively impacted by not understanding policies and so on.
Okay.
So that's my update and looking for support by the committee.
Derek?
what kind of support are you looking for?
Well, it would be nice to have a vote that says that you support the university working through the designated process to at least evaluate the positions, and if it is found they need to be reclassified, that you support it. I'm not asking for financial support, again, for at least 10 years.
Todd?
Just in general, not necessarily about these positions.
Right.
So, yeah, I remember when the letter went out last year, and I understand why, because it seemed like there had been a lot of increases, and it's a substantial addition to the budget for this committee.
Correct.
And it seemed like it was a little rampant. But at the same time, I'm just wondering now, after hearing, and after actually going through this with one of my employees this summer, as you said, the employee can initiate this. And if it is found in HR that indeed they need to be reclassified, then do we have a choice of funding that or not funding that?
No, they're reclassified.
So and then SNA has to come up with the money for that, right? So the letter was just moot.
It's courtesy.
I think it was
And is
more,
this permission moot as well? Because if they get approved, then we've got to come up with the money, whether we agree with it or not.
well,
So I just wondering if I'm understanding that correctly.
or I have the responsibility to figure out how I'm going to fund it and not request the committee to pay for it. And we have taken
Or
on
lessen
some
their
additional-
duties so that they, somehow, so that they,
Correct.
Any further discussion on that? I'd like to entertain a motion of support for the reclassification of CERT accounting employee duties.
I'll second that.
Be so moved. Connie, do you move that?
I do.
Okay, is there a second?
I apologize.
Derek, second. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion of support passes. Thanks, Sharon. I think you're gonna go to this next thing anyways for financial update.
Yep.
So I'll hand the torch to you again.
I want to look at the order I said we were going to do this in. No, I am already out of order. Right. We're just going to, so let's start with supplemental funding. And I need to increase the size. 'Cause
Smile, can you see that?
Okay, so I just wanted to let people see where we are to date on our, can you see it?
Sharon, once you, it might be redundant, but you want to vocalize the numbers so Ashley can hear you too.
Sure.
Okay.
So basically,
Thanks,
to
Robert.
date, we have approved 5 requests. That's PRSSA, Family Studies, the Wellington Suit, the RAD program, and the Service Learning Project to El Salvador. We started with $275,000. So we have approved through the process $431,000. And so I just wanted to make sure folks are aware of that. We still have in our supplemental budget $225,569. So we are at a healthy amount. A lot of this is due to the music department already being funded through base funding, same with sport clubs. And there was some additions to some other budgets. So I think we're really seeing the impact here, which was the whole reason the committee last year wanted to move things more into base funding, because they already have bylaws and structure behind that we don't necessarily have. Any questions? Okay.
Actually, I just have one. What happens, if we do not expend all of that by the end of the year, the supplemental, that just goes back into their reserve so that that's still to be utilized in future years?
Yes, and you're going to see that on the next sheet.
Super good.
So everything that we don't use here rolls into the operating budget for next year. We first take off the bat, and I'll just bring it up so we can. And again, let me make it bigger because this is. So I'm going to start with this year. I'm usually looking forward several years, and so we'll come over into FY15. But so this year, we start with what do we think we're going to bring in revenue-wise. And I want to call everybody's attention to, this is revenue that is handled through the S&A committee. There are other S&A sources of revenue. A good example would be the Early Childhood Learning Service Center. They charge for their services, so they bring in about $350,000 to $400,000 a year. That is not something that we manage, that self-generated revenue. It's what helps supplement their budget so that they don't have to come back to us sooner. So there are a few other sources of revenue. This is basically off the S&A fee only that we're looking at. And then we have summer session. To date, and I looked at this morning, we are at $3,998,209 that's been collected so far this year. We still have spring quarter to go, so we're averaging a little bit around 2 million. We'll probably bring in just a hair under that. You look like you have a question.
So this is exactly on target for our projections, because we've gone through all our revenue for fall, all our revenue for,
Correct.
our revenue for-
We might come in around $20,000 short or something, which is pretty minor when you're talking $6 million. The one thing though on this that, now I lost my train of thought. When you're looking at this number, the $6 million and $3,998,000 year to date, when I first talked to you guys at the beginning of the year, that is not the entire amount from the S&A fee. Off the top of that, 3.5% goes to financial aid. That's by statute and RCW. And then there's also tuition waivers. So the actual amount that was raised was a higher amount, but we have these mandatory decrements. So we're only working with what is our portion after they've already paid financial aid and the tuition waiver. So just as a little side note there. So let me shrink this down a little. So once we bring in the money, this is a little awkward. So there's two components that we look at. What are our contractual obligations? And we talked about this at the beginning of the year, which would be the bond, and our debt policy reserves that require us to, we pull off 5% of our revenue from the year that goes into capital replacements. We maintain 2.5% of the 3-year average of our revenue for part of our bond requirements, and then we have another smaller chunk that we do for if we have some repairs, and it's for facility preservation. Sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied. So anyhow, this is our reserves that we started with, $2,807,000. I'm estimating our debt policy requirements will be around $300,000, and then we have the $850,000 for the bond. So I take this amount, which is, so the 850 and the 300, I decrement from the 63, 65. So I say, okay, well, we have to work with really, after we take care of those requirements, $5,215,000. And then we have a little additional money that's carry forward from last year. And we're working through a little bit of an anomaly here, because we typically try to carry forward $300,000, $350,000, somewhere around that range for those unforeseen emergencies. We last year carried forward over $1 million. And the reason being is we had that 400,000 tag, 350 to 400, plus we received money back through hard work of the committee, Connie, and the administration that was based off of past administrative support costs that were refunded back to us. So this $1,094,000 is not something you would typically see. The $512,000 was also money that we, it's for the end of quadrennium funding pullback. So at the end of the 4 years, you know how we say, okay, here's your base funding money, you can roll it over year 1, year 2, year 3, but at the end of the 4 years, it comes back to the committee, goes right back into our operating budget. And it's these funds
that have really helped keep student fees low. And that was something that was really a focus on the last year's committee. So when I add all of that in, we started with $6,271,000 and change. We take out our base funding. The bond is already taken care of. And I added in these two amounts. This is, our numbers are not that different. So I added in what we have already approved for minimum wage increases and the mandatory step increases and stuff. So those are all added in. We have the $275,000 coming off the top. I don't believe we are going to spend another $225,000. I would be really surprised. Somebody would have to come to us with a huge grandiose scheme. And just because we have it does not mean we should not make good fiscal sound decisions with that money, because you really are good stewards of this money for the students. So anyhow, if we did spend the full 275, that would end us the year around $1,075,000, which again is higher than what we normally would. So we're on target. We did not foresee last year, and we still don't foresee that we would need to increase the SNA fee because we're carrying forward more than a health fee amount. So are there any questions? This same $1,075,000 I have rolling into the next year, and it goes through the exact same number process I just walked you through. So instead of repeating everything, unless somebody has a question. Okay.
No questions? All right. Anything else, Sharon?
Nope, we're looking healthy.
Okay, sounds good to me. I like healthy. We'll move on to section 10, other business communications received. I didn't get any communications. Did you guys?
No, we're
No? Okay. With that, we'll move on to second call for public comments. At this time, is there any public comment? Okay. Well, moving to adjournment. I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
So moved by Miles, second by Connie. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes. Meeting adjourned at 6:07 p.m. Thanks, guys.